For decades, you've been taught that there are two of you. There are professional, sharp, driven, performing, climbing, and then there's the real you. The one with a deeper sense of meaning. The one who quietly wonders if all of this is actually feeding your soul or is it draining you? And we're told to keep those two separate. Leave the spiritual at home, they say. Be the operator of the office. Today's guest spent over 45 years in global corporations and more than 30 on the spiritual path. And he came to a conclusion that changes everything. Those two worlds were never meant to be separate. In fact, your career isn't a distraction from your spiritual life. Your corporate career is your spiritual path. My guest today has generally walked both roads. Now, Rich has spent more than 40 years inside global corporations and more than 30 years in deep spiritual exploration. And rather than living a divided life, he learned to blend the two, achieving high performance and holding on to inner peace, balance, and authenticity. He's a spiritual coach, a speaker and writer, and a lifelong student of Christianity and global and spiritual traditions, and the international best-selling author of The Corporate Sage, gracefully integrating spirituality for authentic leadership. Rich, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you on the show today.
Stacey, it is such a delight here. I'm so looking forward to our conversation.
Just so you could tell everybody, because I took a look at your last name and I said, I'm going to let Rich say this. Can you tell everybody your name for everybody so everybody
Yeah,
knows you?
it's Rich. Strilowich.
Okay.
Strilowich, yes.
Strilowich. I just wanted to make sure because I just said Rich, but I want everybody to know who you actually are. Now, let's start with the experience of so many professionals that quietly live, in this world. Now, you've called yourself a fellow traveler in both worlds, the corporate one and the spiritual one. And for so long, people feel that they have to choose or to wall both two parts of themselves off from each other. Now, what did that division look like in your own life and your own career?
Well, the way it looked for the longest time is, yeah, as you said, I've been in the corporate world for 40 plus years, working for small, medium, large companies. The last 30 years was with a global company of IBM. And, I've traversed the path from software developer on up through IT project program management, director level, HR manager, all those kinds of things. And somewhere along the way, something opened up in me where I started down a spiritual path and I didn't know I was on it because it looked like a lot of inner discontent, and I'll call it even inner pain
Yeah.
that was for me. It was a sense and feeling something's not right here. And maybe it's me, but something doesn't feel good here. And started down a path of being a lifelong learner of every self-help book out there in the world and spirituality books as hoping they would be the answer for me. And along the way, each one guided me into further and further different things so I can get to your question of what did it look having both. One, going up the corporate path, up its hierarchy and getting promoted at different levels. But then this inner journey is a very personal journey. And frankly, if you ask people after all those years I'd been on it, if you ask them about my spirituality, none of them would know. None of
Right.
them would know that I was on that path because it's very personal spiritual path. And so I was guided into numerous different things of energy healing and being certification as a therapist. And I've been on vision quests and meditation retreats, and I found a spiritual director that's helped me along here, all those things. And for the longest time, it felt like, to answer your question directly, it felt like here's my corporate world, and then I do all these other things outside of work to recharge myself and gain that level of inner peace outside of work, hoping it would affect me back at work. But usually what happens is I left my spirituality at the door and
Yeah.
never combined them whatsoever. And so it took me a long time to realize that actually they are combined, and numerous things happened for me along the way. But I find it helpful to first quickly start off with, what is spirituality? Because it can mean many different things, right?
Yeah.
And so, in the way that I'm going to use it here, spirituality is really, at its essence, it's about our connection to source. Or maybe you're going to call it, in your tradition, God, source, the universe, Allah, or something that you use that honors your tradition. That means that you've got a belief that there's something bigger than yourself.
Right.
And in that, there's a Jesuit priest, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, and I love his quote. He says, "We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience."
Yes.
And that means right off the bat, there's something, we are of spirit. There's something beyond this flesh and blood and brains and emotions and thoughts and everything else. There's something beyond us.
Yeah.
Some call it our soul. Some call it just our divine spark within, of something like that. And if you're on the spiritual journey, it means that you probably now are really asking the deeper questions in life of, who am I at my core?
Yeah.
And what is the deeper meaning and purpose of life and interconnectedness that we have with everything, and that inner peace that surrounds and all around and is all around us. I believe it's a Hindu analogy that says there is the infinite cosmic ocean of everything. We might call that God. And we are individuated waves on that ocean. And spirituality is about the relationship, our relationship of the wave to the ocean, such that over time we're infused by the qualities of the ocean. That level of inner peace and contentment and inner fullment that comes from who we really are, no matter what is happening outside. So I wanted to give that as spirituality. And are you a spiritual seeker? I didn't know I was for a long time. I didn't know I was on a spiritual path. I tell people the spiritual path found me, dragging and kicking me. But again, it started off with being a lifelong learner. I always knew I was more sensitive, and I've always been a seeker of truth, but I didn't have words for that for the longest time. And it's, as I said, it started off with inner discontent. There's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
And then other spiritual things that more traditional started finding my way to me. But the one thing I found along the way is that once this is opened up, and I will say, not everyone is called. Not everyone's supposed to be called like this. But
Yeah.
once it's opened up to you, you can't stop it. I
That's true.
tried to, and it kept clawing at me in a very painful way.
Right.
So anyway, I hope that makes sense and is helpful for everyone on
Oh,
what I'm talking about spirituality. And I'm sorry, one last thing. We are born spiritual. And as such, that's our essence of who we all are. As such, we may have been born into a traditional religion, or
yeah.
we may have been attracted to finding a particular religion later on in life. But it
Yeah.
also implies and means that spirituality is inclusive of whatever religion we might be happen to be associated in, of all of them.
I love that. And why do so many driven, successful people end up feeling like they have to leave their deepest selves at the office door?
That comes to the crux of it. The deepest spiritual question that's been asked by the saints, sages, masters, philosophers of all time who've been driven crazy by it, and some of them have found inner peace and enlightenment through it, is, who am I? It's the essential question that actually, in psychology,
Mm-hmm.
um, a sense of how your well-being is having a strong sense of identity and
Yeah.
purpose in life. And there is a piece of that identity that we have been naturally trained to connect to, and that is our ego. And a very, very simple, overly simplistic way is simply that our ego has a positive purpose to it.
Yes.
It's simply our sense of separation,
Yes.
but it can be developed in an overly aggressive kind of way where we tie ourselves to our identity.
Yes.
And our identity might be, I'm a vice president of finance in this corporation, or some other place that you're going to in your career if you've tied your identity and your ego in very, very strong ways. And now, if something happens in your life in a negative kind of way, maybe you get fired from that job,
Mm-hmm.
you now see that as who you are and a failure.
Yeah.
And it's an easy trap to get caught into. Many times people go up the career path, and in midlife they call this, midlife crisis,
Mm-hmm.
because they find out their job didn't bring them the sense of purpose and meaning. Something feels missing in life,
Yes.
and sometimes that can be the awakening, the opening to something deeper on a spiritual path. And times based off of who you are, you might close it down or might not be open to it. And your path is okay for you.
I love that. Now, this is the heart of your message, and it's such a powerful reframe. Like most people see their job as the thing that gets in the way of their growth. Now, you flip that entirely. Your work isn't separate from the path, it is the path. Now, what do you mean when you say your corporate career is your spiritual?
Yeah, sure. Again, I've been on this path now. I didn't know it was a conscious path. It came to me after a while, after working with different types of therapists and teachers and a spiritual advisor. And the spiritual director for me really helped me see it clearly. But there's a quote that I like. It's a Trappist monk, Father Thomas Keating, who's one of the founders of Centering Prayer. And his quote, I'm just going to read it here. The spiritual journey does not require us to go anywhere because God is already with us and in us, living
Mhm.
his life through us every moment. And sometimes I can only speak for myself, come across a quote that changes me to my core.
Yeah,
And when I read that, all of a sudden something affected my heart
yeah,
of it was burnt in if you will of oh, no matter where I am, this is my spiritual path.
right.
You know, sometimes there's that coffee mug quote, no matter where you go, there you are. Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then it was my spiritual advisor who helped me realize on the spiritual path the growth and development on that spiritual path as I defined before. And sometimes it can be you can tell if you're making progress on it by the level of inner peace that you start having, no matter what happens all around you. It's sort of like being the calm in the middle of the storm. And he
Yeah.
started helping me to understand that every event, circumstances, person, place, thing, situation in faith is coming to me for my spiritual growth, and that life happens for you, not to you,
Yeah.
along the way there. Or said in another way, life is not a problem to be solved, it's a mystery to be lived.
Yes.
And the other thing that I bring into it, and again I'll read another quote, is grace. There is, and this might turn some people off because there's a lot of baggage around some of this, but there's a a thought leader in the coaching industry, Cheryl Richardson.
Yeah.
She was one of the first International Coaching Federation presidents. And
Yeah.
I love her definition of grace. It's in her book, Unmistakable Touches of Grace, where it says, over time, you recognize that a benevolent force of energy has been available to guide and direct your life all along.
Yeah.
I call this energy the unmistakable touch of grace. Grace leads us to the exact events and experiences we need exactly at the right time for our own growth.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
And how does the ordinary workplace, the deadlines, the conflicts, the pressure actually become the place where real growth happens?
right. Good question. So now if I'm this is all about perspective
Mm-hmm.
and shifting our perspective. I've learned from many different teachers, but one of them helped me to summarize it. I'll call it four spiritual filters that I teach and talk about on the spiritual path. There are surrender, faith, patience, and acceptance. Surrender doesn't mean that you're just going to give up and let it, whatever happens, because in the corporate world,
Yeah.
I'm going to be managed by a performance review, and I better be achieving results. But it does mean letting go of the outcome. And again, I never can remember this off the top of my head. So the Serenity Prayer says it perfectly. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And St. Augustine says, pray as if everything depends on God, but work as if everything depends on you.
Yes.
So when you can let go of what's happening, and again, I didn't do this all the time. So many times when I managed a project as a project manager, I stressed myself out so deeply
Mm-hmm.
and caused myself health issues because I was driven to make the end project deadline. And sometimes it just doesn't happen no matter how hard you work.
Yeah.
But if I had learned earlier, hey, I'm still going to work as hard as I can, but to let go,
Yeah.
and more of experiences of that help teach me to start letting go.
Right.
And I brought up faith. That's trusting that there's something that's serving a higher purpose for my own good.
Right.
And faith that what's happening is actually supposed to be happening. And and then patience, accepting divine timing in all things. Ecclesiastes says it. In everything there is a season and a time and purpose for everything in heaven.
Right.
Right? Patience. I want things to go in my timing, my ego timing, not divine timing. And the last one was acceptance. That is turning over to God and accepting whatever is given to us as being perfect. And that's really hard to do. I do have a story around that in just a minute, in a little bit. But accepting what is, all of these lead to a deeper sense of inner peace and relaxation in the world while achieving exceptional results. And I will say, the more and more I was on the path where I was able to see, then the guardrails of my spiritual path was my boss who said, I need you to rework this business case and I need it in 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And now I got a crisis. And I didn't mean that I'm not struggling right then and there to
Yeah.
get it done in 2 hours. It means I'm not in the place that I was before and I recover a whole lot faster.
Yes.
It means I've got a whole lot more. What starts coming through more and more on the path when I had a guide help me seeing this situation and this situation was for me, all of a sudden I had a whole lot more availability of peace, which was bringing me a whole lot more clarity,
Yes.
my own intuitive instincts about upset client negotiation
Yeah.
started happening in a way that felt like it was coming through me. It's like
Yeah.
people would come to me afterwards. How did you turn that customer around?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And have them be in a happy place, even though they should be pretty upset. It's like, I don't know. It just came through me. I had more availability and access to those kinds of things.
Right. Oh, I love
So
that.
this is not a short term thing. This happens over time, unless it does happen quickly. Some people, you have an awakening that
Yeah.
just changes everything, like something happens in its right own timing to it. And many times we still have to do other things like therapy,
Yes.
mindfulness, other kinds of things that are so valuable and helpful in managing the deep stress and anxiety that's occurring in the corporate world. And today it's almost worse than everything with all the changes happening, especially the new world of AI
Yes.
that's reinventing even all the other trends that were occurring.
Oh, so true. Now, for the listeners out there, if you ever felt that quiet split between who you are at work and who you really are, this conversation might help you finally bring those two together. Follow the Advisor Business Podcast right now. Every week, we bring you the leaders and the thinkers who help you build career and a life that actually feels more whole. Now, here's the fear that I think a lot of high performers have. So let's, meet it head on. Now, people worry that getting more centered, more spiritual, more at peace means going soft and losing their competitive edge. Now, you've shown the opposite. How does, integrating spirituality in your work actually enhance the performance rather than diminish it?
Yeah, let me answer that in a couple different ways.
Yeah.
One, a personal story. So I was, working in the corporate world, and my wife and I were raising a family, young children, and our daughter was we've got twins,
Hmm.
and our daughter at about 3.5 years old, all of a sudden started regressing. And within a 2 week time period, she completely stopped talking whatsoever.
Wow.
And you look at her, and in her eyes, there's nobody home.
Yeah.
And she was spending her days spinning around and temper tantruming.
Wow.
And we were like deer in the headlights. Now, before this was happening, I said I had been going through other training. I'd gone through coach training, a 4 year energy healing school. I was in the middle of a 4 year therapy training school called Core Energetics, which is very deep, unconscious somatic work. And I was planning on leaving the corporate. My plans were I was going to leave the corporate world,
Yeah.
and I was going to hang up my shingle, and I was starting to see clients at night. When this happened, I shut down my practice overnight.
Wow.
I I thought that was my direction that I was guided to be going,
Yeah.
and we were traumatized. We didn't know what to do at this point in time. Here's our beautiful daughter who's been progressing and all that, and all of a sudden now this is happening.
Yeah.
I can only say in hindsight that it was a blessing and a gift.
Hmm.
And so many things happened out of that. The first thing that happened was, we got ourselves assessments. Yes, she was severely autistic and had
Yeah.
regressed into that. And a doctor said she may never, talk again, and you need to prepare yourself for this life, which is going to be a more challenging life than you thought that you had. The first thing that happened is human angels started showing up in our life. And the
Wow.
first one was an autism coach who
Wow.
had been through the journey before and
Hmm.
advocated for us and saw our daughter and said, and went to us with doctor appointments and to school appointments and other things, and clearly told us afterwards that doctor doesn't know what they're talking about. She's not going to be like that. Yes, there are going to be challenges. And then, so she came in, and other therapies that I could never plan for, other people started showing up. I needed to learn courses on, federal law on disabilities,
Yeah.
and I learned to be an advocate for my daughter and a fighter for her because I now needed to be the strong advocate in the school system for the services that she was needing. Those skills that I started developing from that, I was now also using further than I ever had been at work
Right.
in some of what I'll call the corporate battles that I needed to be in. Because
Yeah.
spirituality doesn't mean that you're lighting candles and burning incense. It
Right.
can if that's your thing.
Yeah.
But I'm a very practical person, and I'm also a doubter, and it's got to be practical for me. But I
Yeah.
could see that this was bringing me gifts
Mm-hmm.
of how I could use this in the corporate world, and then learning later on, like the Bhagavad Gita is a spiritual text that
Yes.
clearly talks about, the two main characters of it, this one king who had to go to battle and his enlightened master, and the king is telling him, you know, how can I be a spiritual being when I'm going to go into battle and war killing my enemy? And the
Yeah.
spiritual master said, this is exactly where God has placed you to be the king and lead your warriors into a righteous, honorable battle where
Mm-hmm.
this is going to happen no matter what, but this is your spiritual path,
Yeah.
actually. And you can also now be in battle with your enemy and have an open heart at the same time.
Right.
So you can be in the corporate world and do all the same things that you have and be a very firm, harsh leader, but something shifted and changed in you internally of a more open heart. And to continue a little bit more with my daughter, further things happened. It took, like, she didn't start talking again until she was about 6.
Mm-hmm.
Many other therapists came into our life to help us along the way. I
Yeah.
knew I needed to stay in my job because I needed the paycheck that a
Yes.
corporate career gives you for all the tens of thousands of dollars worth of debt that we had
Right.
from all the kinds of therapies that we needed. And I needed my night times to then study about autism. My wife quit her job because she needed to be available for my daughter. All of these things happened in such an amazing way where today my daughter is still not going to be independent. She's 23.
Mm-hmm.
She is a delight. She loves 60s and 70s music. She can tell you, she's like a savant who can tell you everything about every musician in the 60s and 70s. She's seen the Monkees and Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons
Mm-hmm.
and the Rascals, and she can tell you all about all of them. And she loves reading, and she gets so excited about her life when she's flapping her hands. I just see her flapping her hands as God's energy is flowing so intensely through her, she can't contain it.
Yeah.
And her middle name, Grace, is so perfect for her right
Yeah.
now. And she's been my teacher to crack open my heart more
Yes.
than anything. So, what turned into something that looked like it was a bad thing happening actually was an amazing thing for
Right.
my own spiritual growth that I never could have planned. Ultimately, in essence, it taught me deeply. I think I'm in control of life,
Yeah.
but really, I'm not in control whatsoever. And
Right.
that's the first step of surrender. And your
Yes.
corporate career will bring you those same kinds of things. One other story. I was in a place as an HR manager, and over 2 years, I had to lay off 28 people. The
Wow.
most difficult thing to have to be the person to select who
Yeah.
you're going to be letting go, and then to read the corporate legal script over the phone because we were all working at home
Yep.
over the phone was the hardest thing. But one person um, changed everything for me. It was the person who I had just given a number 1 top performance rating that year. You couldn't get better. And the
Right.
legal script I had to deliver the message that it had to do with their performance.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is, yes, I had to choose them, and I still would have, but the reality is they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. And
Right.
I needed people in another part of the business. That really caused a crisis in me that caused me to go down into a dark night of the soul depression kind of experience. And it
Yeah.
even brought about almost a heart event. I had to have an emergency stent put in. And
Wow.
into my heart, they said, you're lucky you got this the very next day because the artery was 99% blocked. And that triggered for me a deep inquiry into depression and what is the purpose and meaning for all this. And synchronicities and inspirations started showing up for me
Yeah.
that I never could have expected. A book called Synchronicities showed up and it talked about vision quests
Yes.
and an enlightened experience that occurred through it. I found a vision quest. The vision quest gave me 4 days on my own gave me messages that seemed to be so bizarre that I'm a spiritual seeker and teacher here
Yeah.
that didn't seem real, and that didn't seem real. So, but what do you do with that when you go back to work? That brought me into books, and
Mm-hmm.
that brought me into finding meditation retreats, and that found me into a leader of meditation retreats. I found this one where I found out the guy read a book, wrote a book. I put it on my Amazon book list.
Yeah.
A week later, I looked on my bookcase and it's on the bookshelf. And I read it 15 years earlier and it's highlighted all over the place.
Wow.
And I meet whack on side of the head. I signed up for the retreats, and the leader of it's been my spiritual director for the last, 9 years.
Yes.
All those events, what looked like should have been pretty terrible events and taken me down,
Yeah.
were actually necessary for my spiritual growth into where I am right here, right now. It saved my life, if
Right.
you will.
I love that. And what does authentic leadership, leading from who you really are, look like in a practice in a demanding corporate environment?
Right, great. So there are all sorts of definitions of authentic leadership that you can find. Just go search, Harvard Business Review, and they've got some great definitions of authentic leadership, and they're all true.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't quote them. They've got them written better than I can quote from my
Yeah.
memory. So take that, and now take, as I mentioned before about spirituality. Spirituality is, like I said, connecting to that essence of who we really are. There's a
Yeah.
divine spark of the divine within us. In scripture, it says we are created in the image and likeness of God.
Yes.
So, Matthew says we're the light.
Yeah.
But, we don't go around saying, hey, I'm the light, right? No. And we all each have our own unique nature. And as we go to realizing and recognizing that light and our divinity within,
Yep.
that is our unique nature. I've got my own unique nature. I'm a systems thinker. It's
Yeah.
no wonder I went into the IT world. I can connect the dots all and see how the connections are, and I can see the patterns, and I can recognize them instantaneously without thinking about it. Right?
Right.
People ask me, "How did you connect all that together?" It's like I don't know. It's my nature. It's just what
Yeah.
I do.
Right.
Now I'm connecting that with my divinity within, which has I've been going on a path that I didn't plan for a
Mm-hmm.
long time, and infusing with that with all the assessments and other kinds of things that you might have done in the corporate world around authentic leadership. So
Yeah.
authentic leadership now is infused with who you really are at your core nature. And for me, it was coming through in leadership, as a manager and associate director and other things, where
Yes.
I was no longer having the fear in me to tell hard messages to executives.
I love that.
I used to be scared of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I still needed a nudge,
Right.
but I could, some of the feedback I got was sometimes it wasn't appreciated, but
Yeah.
other executives would come and tell me, it's about time someone told me this because I
Mm-hmm.
need to have this kind of information,
Yeah.
right? And my authentic leadership came through in other ways. Like I said, in my systems thinking, it came through even stronger. My own sense of inner intuition started coming through naturally, and I started trusting it
Yeah.
more. And decisions started become easier for me, and how to navigate complex relationships in the corporate world. I just started seeing, oh, yeah, this is how I connect them together. And I was also able to mentor and help people, coaching people in a much deeper, more effective kind of way. And imagine doing that without all the stress and anxiety that
Yeah.
normally comes from all that. I was thinking clearer. I had
Mm-hmm.
much clearer thinking to be
Yes.
able to make decisions and much easier ways of relating to people and connecting with people. People just started coming to me,
Yeah.
one asking me for advice without my ever seeking them out.
I love
So
that.
it's it's very effective in, like I said, I started consistently getting some of the highest performance reviews
Mm-hmm.
that I had before as I started going this on this journey that nobody knew that I knew I was on. Just something was different.
I love that. Now, this is what I think people, really want most and really believe it is possible. Now, you held the high performance and inner peace at the same time, like in the middle of corporate intensity, like for the professional who feels stretched, who feels stressed, who pulled in, they feel like they are like pulled in every direction. How do they begin to find that stillness and balance without stepping away from their career?
Right. Well, again, first thing is in what I talk about and how I coach people today, the first question is, you know, are they even open to this on the first in the first place? Have they been a play are they in a place that they are a spiritual seeker and some level of this has already been awakened and they're open to it,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And then as I said, there's the short term where there are so many ways to get yourself support
Yes.
to be able to navigate the world. Assessments, coaches, they're all helpful and necessary.
Yeah.
And while you're going through it, as I said, I'm trying to describe how I wanted to say this. On this, I did this the hard way.
Hmm.
I didn't have a guide walking me through it. I had to walk in this terrain and over the 40 years in the corporate world and 30 spiritual path, mostly by myself and figuring out. And I didn't even know I was being guided. I
Right.
didn't know what the guardrails of a spiritual path looked like. All I know is, oh, I see this workshop coming up. It feels right to take it. But it was
Yeah.
all individual. So my spiritual director helped me to actually one help me to recognize and know I am someone who's on the spiritual path, and he helped me to know what those guardrails of the spiritual path even were.
Yes.
And the first reframe for me help was, and this was a hard one. Boy, he was tough. Your highest potential is where you are right now. What? Because this is where spirit has you.
Got
And
it.
when you are guided to be on a different level in a different place, you'll be guided there. But
Yeah.
my highest potential right now and highest fulfillment is where I'm at right now. Now I did not want to accept that. I said acceptance is one of those filters there at whatsoever at all. But more
Hmm.
and more opportunities help me to start to accept that where I'm at right
Yes.
now is actually where I'm supposed to be.
How do they begin to find that stillness and balance without stepping away from their own career?
First place I also always start with people is where you're currently at,
Hmm.
right? And I trust that their spiritual path has already been leading them to where they're supposed to be. There's a quote I love from St. Teresa of Avila, it, and that is, it. Now I gotta go read it. I always. um, it is love that is the light is in love with you, and your life is an exact recording of God's courting strategy. That's poetically, or said another way, everything that ever happened to us had to occur just that way, such that we may know our divinity with it.
Love it. I love that.
So start with where you're at. And maybe there's something tangible that you need. If someone's going to work with me, I always insist that they are committed to a meditation practice,
Right.
even if it's only for 5 minutes. But
Hmm.
that's going to be the container for you to hold your spiritual growth, to be able to hold everything else that's going to be occurring. Because again, what I've been talking about doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
But you need to also be real with what's happening right in front of you. And I look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the five needs. The first starts at survival, and the
Yes.
top one, the fifth, starts at self-actualization. If
Yes.
you're in a survival mode, trying to put food on the table and shelter and all that, you're probably not open or available for the spiritual path. You
Right.
need to be focusing on that. But if you're not in that mode, if you're somewhere in between there and you are can recognize and be open to this journey
Yes.
and take it seriously and consciously toward that self-actualization, like I said, the place to start is where you're at and meditation, but then start to do things that feel inspired to you. And
Yes.
synchronicities will start to open up as to what the right path might be. But finding a guide can be very helpful. A guide or coach or whatever can be very helpful.
And what's one of the practical things that someone could start doing, even in a hectic week, to become more of that grounded, authentic leader, the corporate sage?
Right. Well, a sage, um, one, Webster will say a sage is someone distinguished for wisdom,
Yeah.
right? And I talk about the corporate sage as you've gone through the spiritual path. That kind of wisdom is going to start coming through you naturally. Again, not overnight, but practically right here, right now. I love mindfulness,
Yeah, me
right?
too.
So mindfulness is so extremely helpful. And now there's even, science-based research
Mm-hmm.
showing what effects it has during QEEG readings of our brain and
Yeah.
the effects that it can have. So very practically things, there are things of, a mindful minute. You can, before you join onto the next call, you can just take a minute, close your eyes, breathe in and out, relax your shoulders. Maybe you want to breathe to imagine white light overflowing throughout your whole body. Just something to relax right here and now.
Yeah.
That's almost at the survival level, but it's what you need right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I distinguish mindfulness from meditation. Mindfulness, and again, John Kabat-Zinn is like the master of it. He's got a definition which is incredible. I can't quote it. But mindfulness is about using your senses to be present with what is right here, right now.
Right.
So it's very physiology oriented and neurology oriented, being here right now.
Right.
Meditation is transcendent of the body.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's different and brings you to a different transcendent experience of yourself. That mindfulness, but that mindfulness might be just what you need right here, right now.
Yes. Now, you spent a lifetime proving that we don't have to choose between success and soul. So, from everything that you've lived and learned, what do you most want the professional who feels divided, successful on the outside, but searching on the inside to understand?
First is there is hope. There really is hope, and I didn't know there was hope along the way,
Yeah.
uh, right? And that, boy, if you are open to this spiritual experience and you can recognize that you are being guided, some of it is changing your perspective or those filters that I talked about. But
Yes.
someone that I really is an idol for me
Mm-hmm.
is Viktor Frankl. Man's Search book, Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah.
And he was I mean, here is a person who, and again, I've got another quote of his right here. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own.
Yes.
Now, he was in the most horrific of experiences a human being could ever experience, and that is going through the Holocaust and having lost most all of his family in there, and yet his conviction and commitment that they will never take away my inner freedom to choose changed everything for him in his survival.
I love
And I
that.
look at that and it's like, boy, yeah, I've got a job that, I have been through burnout and
Yeah.
I've been in toxic environments, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was some victim side of me at the time in some of that.
Yeah.
But what place is burnout to a man like Viktor Frankl, who,
Right.
I mean, I have not had to experience anything like that. So
Yeah.
burnout is nothing. That's not to degrade it. That's not to
Right.
say it's not valid, but someone like him shows me our inner spirit and power to change our perspective on how we view and sit with these kinds of situations.
I love that. Now, you've written a book. Can you tell us the title of the book, a little bit of what it's about, and where people can find it?
Sure, it's called The Corporate Sage: Gracefully Integrating Spirituality for Authentic Leadership. And a lot of it has been my own path here. And, my path is very diverse of, like I said, the corporate career that I've described and all the things that I've done along the way. I have learned, I do have a Christian background, but I've also studied saints, sages, masters of numerous different spiritual and religious traditions of the East and West. And I've learned from all of them. And I came to my own sense of what would a coaching structure look like to help someone recognize that they're on the spiritual path and have them committed to that path
Yes.
and trusting that they're already being guided. And so the book describes that whole process and the depth of it. And I've got a 5 module coaching process that I take people through, but really it's the description of the coaching program that I now work with corporate leaders on. Again, I could be doing this with many different types of people, but in the corporate world, they're my tribe.
Yeah.
That's where I lived for so many years. I
Mhm.
know that world, and I know the politics of it, and I know the challenges
Yeah.
of it. So I wrote this book first because I was coming up with a coaching program and I was trying to define it. And as I kept doing that, it kept going deeper and deeper. And lo and before I knew it, I had a book.
I love it. Now, where can people find it?
Yes, you can find it first. It is on Amazon. You can search it up for it there. I also do have a website. It's www.stillpoint.com, Stillpoint, Stillpoint. That's Stillpoint. That's in the center of who we are. Stillpoint.com, and you'll find a tab on there for the book, and you can also get it over on my website.
I love that. I love that. Now, what are some of the services and any products that you have that you could offer individuals to help them?
Great. First, I've got a free gift, and I really thought about what could be helpful for people right away. So again, if you go onto my website, you'll find a tab that says resources, and it's a workbook, it's a free download. And what this workbook is it walks you through some of the paths to do a journaling process, one of identifying your true real self identity, and then it talks about um, helps you guide you through some steps to recognize that you actually have been guided through your entire career.
Right.
And the first place, I talked about the question of who am I? The
Mm-hmm.
first way to answer that question of who am I is your lived life.
Yeah.
Our life is a statement already of who am I?
Yes.
And that is inclusive of our jobs that we've had in the past and present, our titles, our families, our interests, our college, everything that's been about us
Yes.
already is the answer to the question of who am I? And then there's the beacon, who am I?
Yeah.
We are the, as I said before. And then I go through further process of recognizing the patterns and your deepest learnings through there of seeing how everything that occurred in your corporate career here actually has contributed to um, your spiritual growth. So there's a free resource there. I'd love people to get a copy of that and download that and walk through an exercise like this. And then so there's that, and there is also a place where you can book a call with me. I just want to open it up to everybody. And I love having spiritual conversation with people. It's what drives me, right? And so
Yeah.
we could use, if you want to just book time with me, the first things first is there's no commitment. Yes, I am a coach, and there's a program that I'd love for people to go through. But a call like this really is about more being in service. So we could either have it be a generalized conversation, or if you would like one 30-minute coaching session simply about what's your biggest spiritual challenge in the corporate world, we can turn it into that too.
I love
So
that.
I have that, and then like I said, I have a 12-week coaching program that I work with corporate leaders um, on how to integrate spirituality into your corporate.
I love that. Now, if there's one thing from this conversation today that you really would like people to walk away with, what's one thing that you would love people to remember from our conversation today?
Oh, it's the tagline. Your corporate career is your spiritual path came to me in a meditation. And when that came through, because I had never had that thought before,
Yeah.
it almost like it penetrated my heart,
Right.
right? And so I'd love to leave that as a message that your corporate there is hope. Being open to it, your corporate career, there is a way to see that as being in service to you
Yeah.
as your in your own growth as your spiritual path. You don't need to leave your spirituality at the door. That it can be part of. You can see it as your growth of where you're at, and even in the midst of the challenges of all of
I love that. That's great. I love that. Now, for all the listeners out there, it turns out that we were never meant to live as two separate people, the performer and the seeker. The most grounded, authentic leaders are the ones who bring those worlds together and discover the path to the meaning that was running right through their work all along. Now, Rich has walked us through the both worlds, and he has come back to show us that the way through, and today he reminded us that success and inner peace were never enemies, that they were always meant to travel together. I just want to thank you so much for being on our show today. And, once again, tell the listeners your website so they remember.
Stillpoint, STILLPOINT.com.
And if this conversation spoke to you, that quiet split between, your feelings that you've been experiencing, share it with someone who has been carrying it too. And I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show today. You did an outstanding job, and all your wisdom and all your thoughts were fun. They were just phenomenal. I think a lot of times we always do separate our spiritual world, not on purpose, from our work world, because while we're at work, we're just focusing on work. But if we learn to combine the two and we learn how to utilize them both in our personal lives and at work, life could be so different and so much more grand for individuals. But with a little practice and a little time, people can easily get to that point where they can do that and notice the wonderful change that you've experienced, that I've experienced, and that others can now experience. So I want to thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge, all your wisdom, and showing people a new path, a new way that they could live life and experience the wonders of life, in a much more happier, fulfilling way. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Stacy. This has been so much fun and such a delight. I really enjoyed this. Thank you.
I really enjoyed it too. Thank you, and you have a great day.